Thank you very much for being here. I guess you have been enjoying the beaches. Well, we're going to start with today's topic. Today's topic is e-billing for micro, small, and medium-sized companies. We have Ivan Beltran Cruz, Integration Manager in Chile. Thank you very much for being here. From Brazil, Vinicius Pimentel. From Freires, leader of electronic document from Rio Grande do Sul. And Mr. Maximo, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you here, Mr. Maximo Frias, President of Markets in the state of Tabasco. Before we start, I would like you to watch this video. With the reform we had in 2014, we started working to educate people. We're going to start with this video, and later on, we're going to continue with the panel members. So could you please start playing the video? Head offices of SAT. In Mexico City. Growth history. This is a Tabasco market. This market was created in 1960. We started with 800 establishments, and now we have 1,200 establishments. We started listening to the news with regards to the new fiscal reform at the end of 2013. So we went to the SAT headquarters because we wanted to make some suggestions. We went to the Congress because we said that we had to have a taxpayer specialist or expert, an internet line, e-billing, and nobody has been concerned for issuing a reform that gave us the fiscal incentives to have access to loans with very low interest rates so that the taxpayer could benefit from that, so we can have all the facilities through the information modules. We have consultants, we have people that are trained that show us step by step how simple it is to become part of the taxpayer universe and pay our taxes accordingly. People were somehow afraid of this, but things have changed. With Mr. Aristoteles, we have been working together. The payment is 215. It's a fixed fee. That's the way it used to be. Now, if I don't have to pay, I don't pay. Well, I was told that I was going to manage a lot of information. We were, in fact, afraid of saying what we're going to do because I didn't have clear information of this new regime. Now, we have a module in the Pino Suarez market because there are many benefits with regards to the loans we can get, with regards to training, fiscal assistance. I would like to invite all my colleagues from the small markets, more establishments, and people that have establishments in the markets to go to the Ministry of Finance to ask, and especially those ones that have those modules created by SAT, go there, ask questions, because the module is a place where you're going to get accurate information. And there you can file your tax returns, or at least you can do most of the process. Yes, there are some new SAT modules nationwide, and there you can get all the information. And I am certain that that monster we imagined that we could not defeat is pretty simple. Being in the fiscal regime, it's easy and it has benefits for you and your family. For example, when you register, you have the right to health services. You can pay your house and you can get a home loan and get your retirement. You can ask for loans to make your commerce or your business grow. So, if you want to get further information, visit the website Crezcamos Juntos in sat.gov.mx. Well, you have already seen a success story in Villahermosa Market. Now we're going to ask the opinion of other countries. Vinicius, can you tell us what happens with a micro, small, and medium-sized company to be able to issue this electronic invoice? So what about the services that are provided? What's the experience that you can share with us in your country? Again, thank you very much for the invitation to be here and to be sharing our experience. Well, with regards to micro, small, and medium-sized companies in Brazil, we have a law called the Simplex Law. All the social and fiscal contributions are replaced with a unique contribution. That regime simplifies the process to the micro entrepreneurs. These are individuals that have an annual income that is under 27,000 US dollars. Those are the people that can be part of this mode or regime. We do not make any difference with regards to e-billing if it is a large company or a micro company. The system is just the same. The document is exactly the same. Everything related to IT is the same. So how do we make it available for micro, small, and medium-sized companies? We have two solutions. The first solution in some states is to offer, as Ivan is going to mention the Chilean experience, there's a website, and I'll leave that information for Ivan. And the other way is that we can have software that is available in the Ministry of Finance at state level, and the companies can download this software and can download it to their own computer, personal computer. So is it easy to use? Well, it can be used in any platform because it's Java. And the taxpayer just needs a digital certificate in order to sign the documents. There's a first stage, and then to establish the communication with the National Tax Administration. So the only thing that is necessary is a desktop or a laptop. We're talking about small and medium-sized companies. They have to invest in a computer, and they certainly have a computer for their kids. And another investment, that is the certification that is bought. It's not given like in most countries. It's just a product like any other product. So these are the two strategies that we have to facilitate access. So what is the problem with this program that is offered to taxpayers? In order to have this program running in any platform for any type of business, it has to have certain restrictions. The restriction is that it cannot communicate with RTE systems, because if you are large enough to have an RP system, you don't need to have a program or software to invoice. That's the strategy that we have in Brazil for e-billing for small and medium-sized companies. Thank you very much. So all taxpayers can invoice. Well, not they must invoice with those two programs that you have through internet or through software. And we want to open another aspect. How can we include those entrepreneurs that are not currently paying taxes? And that's the experience that we have from Tabasco, but that's another question that you may ask later on. Thank you very much. Ivan, could you tell us what happens in Chile? Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's an honor for me to be here as well. In Chile, the experience has been pretty positive. So when we started looking at people that were invoicing in Chile, the electronic invoice is not mandatory yet. Now we're going to start a regime where large companies will have to or must invoice electronically as of September. And for the rest of taxpayers, it will be as of next year. It will become mandatory. Well, in these 2 years, we have been developing the e-billing market. The first challenges had to do with teaching people how to use the digital certificate. We started educating people on how to use technologies in order to e-bill. With regards to micro companies, the market and the tax administration started with a full SB program. Everything is already in the cloud, and the taxpayer is provided a system that issues invoices, that saves issues, and it's given for free by the tax administration in Chile. And from the point of view of the development of software, well, the micro, small, and medium-sized company market has been developing software, and they have been incorporating RPs and payroll control systems, and there is a technological development from all the internet providers as well as the electronic billing providers. This used to be part of the tax administration. The first users were young. They were the kids of the people that were actually they were actually with filing their taxes. So what we did, we were teaching the kids that were 12 or 13 years old, that were helping their parents to file their taxes, their tax returns. Nowadays, after a couple of years later, we can see that the people are naturally working with this system because we had to teach them how to work with this. Now, most of them are using a smartphone and electronic billing. People that are already using a smartphone have no issues with e-billing. It just comes natural. For us, as a company that provides an electronic invoice, how we have always thought, how can we approach to the micro, small, and medium-sized companies? They have some very specific needs. They need very important levels of efficiency, and we think that incorporating the accountant, because we need the accountant, the person that is responsible for the payroll, etc. So the accountant is extremely important for the micro entrepreneur. So how can we educate accountants, and how can we educate the owner of a micro company? Thank you very much, Ivan. The accountant is the one that listens to what the taxpayer. What happens in Mexico? Well, with regards to a small company, we have companies, large companies that have been working with e-billing for a long time, and we had to incorporate individuals. Individuals have already been migrated to 2014, but we have this small sector, the micro companies, and what we did was that we ask this type of taxpayers to become part of the formal market with the same schemes that we have for a company. What do I mean by this? Companies have electronic accounting. They also have e-billing. But what happens with individuals? We are going through that process through my accounts. We have already done this. Individuals are already issuing the electronic bills, and now that micro taxpayer is already issuing bills. So now large companies, micro, small, and medium size companies are already issuing their invoices, and also accounting. As Vinicius from Brazil and Ivan from Chile have told us, this is part of the culture and part of the technological skills those people have. And you said that the children are the ones that are very good at computers, and those were the ones that were taught at first. So what is the resistance that you have faced in Brazil with regards to the scheme of electronic billing and small taxpayers? Resistance, or the arguments used to resist, are the same for the micro, small, medium-sized companies, as well as for large and very large companies. They are always related to communication. The operating system, or the operating model of e-billing in Brazil, assumes that the bill should be transferred to the tax administration before the sales occurs. And many people say, no, this is not going to work because the communication is not good, because there's no internet available all the time, because my computer is not working properly, and this is going to be a huge problem for my business. People will have to queue a lot because of these problems, and these are the resistances that we have faced. But these has been overcome based on the experience. The strategy is that the decision is always voluntary, and 2 or 3 years later it becomes mandatory. During this time, when e-billing is voluntary, these myths disappear, that the communication is a problem. Of course, there are always communication issues, or communication problems occur, but it's a very small percentage of time where communication is not available. So this is so when it's not possible to communicate with the tax administration, what do? There's a contingency process, and there's a whole methodology for this. So the resistance is communication issues. Of course, there's also another argument, which is cost. The cost of purchasing a computer, the cost of purchasing the certificate I mentioned before. In 2006 and 2007, maybe this was a major issue, but in 2014, You cannot have a company in Brazil if you don't have a computer, if you don't have a digital certificate because of a series of reasons. First of all, because of the obligation to invoice, but also because of other obligations that have been imposed by the federal government, specifically with regards to employees' rights, the communication with the central government to provide information with regards to the salaries, benefits, etc. Thank you very much, Vinicius. What happens with Chile, Ivan? Have you encountered resistance with regards to e-billing? Yes, of course. Yes, we have encountered a lot of resistance, and basically the resistance is exactly the same as the one mentioned by Vinicius. People say, why are we going to change the way that we do things? There's no point on doing it, etc. But in Chile, the tax administration does not intervene in the transaction. I mean, it's pretty the same as in Brazil. The rest is exactly the same, but I would like to add one that we as certificate supplier, we see the opportunity. The taxpayer doesn't like to work with the tax administration software because we know that the tax administration service controls, regulates, and even though they have a pretty clear idea that in a system provided by the market, the invoice will be provided right away to the tax administration. The feeling of the user, of the taxpayer, is that he or she doesn't want to be using the software of tax administration. That's where we see the opportunity, where we can give a better added value to the micro entrepreneur. And that's something that we think it's an opportunity. Yes, there is resistance. There's a cultural change. The way things have to be done, the way that transactions are done, that generates change resistance. But even though there's resistance, it is achievable once people understand how simple it is to do it, and the people manage to become part of the e-billing process. As Ivan had already mentioned, when this is done through the electronic software provided by SAT, I don't want to do it. I'd rather do it through a third party. And we have been working with that, and that's part of the change. Mr. Maximo, what happens with that resistance that you encounter for these micro and small taxpayers? You are the head of one of the largest markets in Villahermosa. What can you tell us about your experience and what you started living or experiences when you were told that you had to start using electronic billing? Good morning. I'm very happy to be in this forum where I'm going to share my experience. In Mexico, there is a culture of rejection for anything that has to do with innovation and changes, especially if we're talking about something that we don't know, we're not familiar with. E-billing for us was completely unknown in the markets. We did not know what it was about. We were not used to it because we were in some areas in the informal market, and we had to start bringing about a change to be at the vanguard and to comply with our obligations as taxpayers. So we felt that we were in a difficult position. We were afraid of what was coming. So at first we did not accept it. So this ignorance led us to think that this was not going to work, that this was not going to be as we were told, because we were not going to get in the markets what we needed. And we didn't know that being part of the system will allow us to get loans or to make our businesses grow. I think that billing is something imperative, is something mandatory. We have some resistance to change, but we also have lots of benefits. So I think it's worth analyzing it, and it's worth becoming part of it. Thank you, Mr. Maximo. If you were able to watch the video, in the video, some successful stories were shared in the Villahermosa market. They are owners of establishments in the market. At first, as Mr. Maximo mentioned, there was a lot of resistance, and they were educated and explained how things were going to happen. So SAT, or the tax administration, started explaining what it was all about with through an electronic means without having a computer. We are there for them to help them. And Vinicius mentioned before, most of the companies in Brazil cannot work without a computer because they have internet. If we talk about the smallest sector, that is that we don't want these people to be in the informal market, well, that's not necessarily true. The policies that have to do that have to do with transferring people or transforming people that are in the informal market to the formal market, that's something. They have to access the world where they have benefits, where they have rights, but we have e-billing. These are different programs in Brazil. We treat it differently. There are programs in that sense, but that's not my expertise. I don't feel comfortable conveying that experience in Brazil with regards to those very small companies or those establishments that are part of the informal market. So have you found any resistance when invoicing? Well, in Chile, what has happened in the last 8 years, we started working together with the tax administration and AISI and other agencies from the state that had to do with training, use of technology, and fostering. Part of the conditions that the taxpayers had to have access to this, they were given money to create projects or with their startups. They have to be part of the e-billing system or to be part of the tax administration system, and a program that was incorporated to e-billing where the government financed digital certificates as well as personal computers. This was an 8-year period that was focused on these small taxpayers. They were given this support for their businesses. The way that how did you check if that grant was actually invested in a computer? Well, that was part of the work of other agencies that were responsible for fostering businesses. But the other agencies that had to do with fostering, they really follow through the process. Thank you very much, Ivan. And for the challenge that we have in each tax administration, Vinicius, have you faced a specific challenge to incorporate all taxpayers to the electronic tools such as e-billing? Are you currently facing any challenges? What has happened during the years that you started working with e-billing? Well, we have to make a distinction or a difference. As I said yesterday, in Brazil, we have different ways of electronic billing or invoicing with different operating systems and modes, different ways that the different companies can communicate with the tax administration. In Brazil, it's a fiscal note, and it's similar to an e-billing. And we have two types of documents. A document that is used among two companies with VAT, and the document or note that is given by the salesperson to the final consumer. These are two different documents. And in the first case, where you have a document between two companies, the paper cannot be used anymore. Hard copies cannot be used anymore. In most states, it's mandatory to use electronic billing. So there are no challenges there. But we started in 2013 and 2014. We're expanding this, and we haven't gotten to the half the states electronic billing for purchases to final consumers. And there we have lots of challenges. We have many small and micro companies. We have lots of companies in the informal market. So we have lots of challenges because we want everyone to use e-billing. In 5 years, we want everybody to be using e-billing. So we started with large companies, medium-sized companies, small size companies. That was in 2009, 2010, 11, and 12. And now in 2013, we started with companies that sell to end users. And here, remember that yesterday our lecturers from Spain told us something important. The main issue is that many times, since it is a marketplace or a market, or it's a very small restaurant downtown, or the warehouse or the grocery store in the corner, they do not have a computer. How are they going to do the e-billing? So the challenge is, first of all, to provide these small businesses with e-billing. So Renato had mentioned this before. We can do that in tablets or smartphone. For instance, Samsung produces tablets in Manaus, Brazil. Samsung incorporates to the tablet a e-billing solution. If you purchase the tablet, the Samsung tablet, you already had that app inside for e-billing. And in Spain, they told us yesterday how to incorporate in the IT system the electronic signature based on a digital document that is 509. In these times where there's a difficulty of installing extensions in the browsers, and it's necessary to have an extension there provided by a private supplier or by the tax administration to have access to the private key that is inside that certificate, and that certificate resides in the cryptographic hardware with a token or with a smart card. How can we do that? That's the main challenge. How can we incorporate security that is demanded by the legal system, the security of this electronic signature, with the problem that it's not as simple to install an extension to have this signature? That's the problem that we're currently facing, and we don't know the solution yet. That's a major challenge. If we knew the solution, it would not be a challenge. Of course, it's going to be a challenge that is going to be addressed in Mexico. We're facing the same problems in Mexico. Within the phones, you can download the application so that the taxpayer can issue invoices. That was part of the resistance. We already have the application. As you mentioned, Vinicius, we already have an app in the smartphones where the taxpayer can download the application. It's for free, and you can generate or issue the bill, the electronic bill. So you can download the application. If the taxpayer or the customer wants an invoice, you will be able to issue the invoice. And for us, it's not the signature because they do not use the advanced signature that they're using their ID, their tax ID, and with that, they send the information, and the SAT sends the information. The invoice is certified, and that's something that can be provided by that small business to those taxpayers to have a better abilities. What can you tell us about issuing electronic invoices? Well, basically, we are focusing on how to provide the service through smartphones and tablets. The screen or that's a display that most people are looking at every day. So if we can all be in the smartphone, it's an added value that we're going to save, and we will be able to have a greater coverage. So it's also our challenge. Even Mr. Maximo, when you started to listen to the fact that you had to issue an invoice, and when there is a reform, people start creating some myths and they generate some fear. And many people started saying, oh, it's very simple. So in order to issue the bill in the market, what can you tell us? Well, at the beginning, we didn't want to know anything about it. We were protesting, and we were not we didn't want to be part of that new regime, and there was a lot of resistance with regards to e-billing because we have been used for many years to issue our invoices in a hard copy, to print them out. We get a certificate, we have a folio number, and we have the hard copy. When we started with this new regime in January the 1st, 2014, it created some psychosis because in the markets, there's a culture of no payment. Very little establishment owners really pay their taxes and comply with their fiscal obligations. Then we had to start as leaders to start convincing people after the protests against the fiscal incorporation regime. When we understood what was it all about, when we were explained what was it about, when the fiscal authority explained everything, we understood that a change was necessary because of all technology. There are still some cases where we find a lot of resistance, but they are not the majority. The success is that the fiscal incorporation regime has provided benefits that are appealing for the taxpayer and for the person that is not paying taxes. Through tianguis, through markets, through selling in the streets, that informal market has been growing around the markets. So we have that challenge. How can we reach those people? How can we convince them to become part of the formal market? And let's accept not only the fiscal incorporation regime, but also the benefits that come together with this regime. Because now we can issue the electronic billing or the electronic bill in a very easy manner. By having electronic invoices, I can sell to other suppliers, to major suppliers that will help my establishment or my business grow. For instance, it's their patrimony, it's the inheritance for our children, so we cannot get behind. We have to use that technology so that we can move forward from being small businesses to huge business people, so that in the future our children can receive the inheritance of the benefits, and also, I mean, not only the establishment per se, but the benefits provided by the fiscal incorporation regime. I know that at first there are certain complexities, but after people get used to the computer, any place where we have access to internet, we can personally file our returns. And the SAT in Mexico approached to us and gave us a module that is in the market. I want to tell you that this was a huge challenge for us because the establishment owners told us, why is Hacienda, why is SAT here in the market? How are you inviting someone that can that can harm us inside the market? The enemy has to be at home, and because we can take advantage of the benefits. So what do you think if we become partners? Let's understand what the fiscal incorporation regime is. Let's take advantage of the benefits. Let's update ourselves with the technology. You don't have to have a computer. You don't have to create the invoice. You have to go to the module. You can go there and you can learn, and you will see how easy it is to have that technology. We saved in computers, we saved in internet, we saved computer classes, and we saved the payment of the accountant. The accountant is sometimes the one that is doing the accounting, but also I'm about to tell my colleagues we don't need accountants anymore, because in a way, if you invest some extra time, you can learn how to do things. Because one of our proposals was, at the beginning, here in Mexico, we pay 215 pesos as a fixed fee. And the establishment owners, I'm willing to pay twice as much, but I don't want the administrative complexity, because we heard rumors. We believed those rumors. There was no interest to be part of this. We didn't want to break down the information and understand what the fiscal incorporation regime was all about. After being a person that was opposing the fiscal incorporation regime, now I am the promoter. Now we have 10 modules ready to start operating in Tabasco. We're about to start 4 more out of 17 we had, but they have been strategically placed in the markets. Why in the markets? Because the market is the meeting point of our cultures and our people. So this is where the first economic transactions take place in the cities. that started in the colonial period. Now, markets, we are not competition for large chains, and we are about to become extinct. Based with this project, together with SAT, we're going to make this culture, this tradition, this market revive for Mexican families. And we're going to integrate all establishment owners and making them aware that it is necessary to progress, to move forward, so we can have the right to demand good health services, to demand roads. We have to have the responsibility of the payment because the Constitution tells us so, and it will also give us the moral authority to demand better services. And when we are before our children, we would teach them how to be good entrepreneurs, good business people, because we cannot run away from this. We cannot be left behind. Not even as a market or establishment owners. We have to learn how to use this technology. So I would like to publicly thank SAT in Mexico because SAT has listened to us. SAT has been concerned about our needs, and we have a challenge. The challenge is that in a year we're going to get new taxpayers, but they are going to be sorted out within this norm or law that has to be followed, because that's part of our obligation to pay taxes on timely basis. So it has not been easy for me, because changing the trend in the market or the tradition of not paying and now becoming an advocate for paying taxes, because I have the support from the government. I have access to health services. I have access to loans. I can receive grants from the different agencies that can help my business grow. So once we diversify and we see this huge outlook or landscape of benefits, well, I want to comply with my obligations because I have that government support that will help me progress and grow together. Thank you very much, Mr. Maximo. So as you can hear, it was a huge challenge to be able to make establishment owners pay their taxes. As we heard from Vinicius from Brazil and Chile from Ivan, and all the experience we lived in Mexico through Mr. Maximo, the fact that the electronic means are being implemented and the fact that a computer is used for e-bidding, the tools are needed, and this is part of the culture that has to be managed. And at least Brazil and Chile mentioned this, and according to Mr. Maximo in Mexico, this is something cultural, but it goes together with skills, with educating people. Unfortunately, sometimes myths become an obstacle. Sometimes myths are created, and this is misinformation for the taxpayer, and people are fear that they will not be able to comply with their obligations. And this is something that can be achieved by all taxpayers, and that can be done by Mexicans, Brazilians, Chileans. Technology is reaching us. The SAT leader said yesterday it's a change of paradigm that has to be managed in all countries because of all the technological change that has reached us or that has surpassed us. So let's continue working on this. We know that we can do it. Here we have an example with Mr. Maximo that this can be done. And the important thing is to inform the people, to get close to the people, educate them, to overcome the myth that the fear to the computers and the technology. It's a change on each generation. Young people have an built-in chip, and the technology is there, and they are born with a mobile in one hand and a control in another hand. Other generations were not that lucky, but we have to adapt. This is a challenge. This is a transition for all the people that were not exposed to that technology, and we are living this with these new generations. Thank you very much. I don't know if you want to make any questions, Vinicio, to debrief. What can you tell me about Mr. Maximo, what you listened to about his experience e-billing those small taxpayers? You've already heard Maximo. What's your opinion? Well, first of all, I would like to congratulate you for the initiative of the tax administration and the Tabasco market. Certainly, it is an example for everyone. So, my congratulations. My most sincere congratulations. In Brazil, we don't have municipal markets anymore. It's not common. There are some markets still, but in very, very large cities, and they are not. I mean, we have large companies that have substituted the market. The experience of including, that is trying to evangelize people. Here we have an example that the best person that can preach is a person that has converted. This is the Tarsus Times. How can we do that? How can we export this? There are many programs. There's an agency called SEBRAE. The mission of SEBRAE is to train those people that want to become entrepreneurs, or the ones that are already entrepreneurs, but they want more training. This is fiscal obligations, but also things that have to do with the business plan, cash flow, how to look for funding, how to manage accounts payable and accounts receivables, because they are not only business people, they are entrepreneurs from the transformation industry, from strategic industry, from primary productive industry. So the programs that I've mentioned are important because they are inclusive. Of course, first of all, these people are given information of fiscal awareness. That's what Mr. Massimo was telling us about. The very little that I can pay, the very, very little that I can pay and contribute with society, it's excellent, because then you can ask and demand the government to invest all those resources properly, because we work with public resources, and we always say, I'm not going to pay because all the money is going to be stolen. That doesn't happen in your country, does it? It's going to be invested improperly. That's something that the government has to do. We have to spend the money wisely, but as citizens, in order to hold the government accountable, we have to contribute with a fair pay. We have to pay the taxes. Thank you very much, Benicio. And what happens with Chile? What do you think about the experience that Mr. Massimo has explained that could be applied in Chile, or that you have already applied in Chile? Well, you are the champion of formality in your sector, Mr. Massimo. I would like to congratulate you. Well, the tax administration started working on that and partnered with micro entrepreneurs to start changing people from being in the informal market to the formal market. And we followed a very similar strategy. From the private point of view, when I look at Mr. Massimo's experience, I think that the private sector has the challenge of providing quality services to this sector, because when we started developing electronic billing, everybody is pointing at the largest companies, but these micro companies are very, very powerful. There are many, and they need quality services. So the developers, software developers, and providers have a major challenge. That is, let's not focus only on large companies, but let's also focus on micro companies. And this is an opportunity for everyone. We see opportunities all over the place, and we have to deliver high quality services. We have to make these programs and software intuitive with high quality. We want them to grow. We don't want them to be small businesses. This is one of the greatest advantages. They are going to be able to compete against others, and their business will grow. So this is the conclusion. Thank you very much, Vinicius, Brazil. Thank you for all your comments. Ivan, thank you very much. Ivan from Chile. And also Mr. Massimo from the Tabasco market. Thank you very much for being here. Is there a question? Patty, there's going to be a Q&A session. It's just 3 questions. Please raise your hand if you have a question. Raise your hand if you have a question so you can get the microphone. Good morning. This question is for Ivan Ivan from Chile. What opportunities do you see for the private sector to be part of the niche of micro and small size companies when the fiscal government has a free software? Doesn't that inhibit the fact of exploring software? Well, the application that is going to be provided by the state or by the tax administration is a very simple software of a very limited added value for e-billing. But a micro entrepreneur, let's say part of a retail chain, or someone that is starting a company, has to manage purchasing orders, information from the customers, etc. And opportunities are there. If you integrate that with your e-billing platform, then you have a service with a higher added value for the micro, small, and medium-sized companies. But if you don't do that, if you do not add a value, well, I will continue working with the one that is provided by the government. But if you have financing system, means of payment, and other tools, the companies choose something very simple. There's the niche, and obviously you cannot charge a lot of money. You cannot have very high prices, but at least you're going to have lots of potential customers with a platform with a good added value. Let me help you with the answer. In Brazil, we have lots and lots of free software provided by the private sector. The private sector is competing with the state to provide free solutions. Why? Because what they say, if you use my business, you're going to have all these advantages if you pay. This is also an opportunity for the companies to start with free solutions for the small, very small companies. In fact, in 2004 or 2005, there were some mining companies. In Chile, mining companies are extremely important. A mining company can have 40 to 50,000 suppliers, contractors, etc. And the mining company needed to manage suppliers. For instance, issuing an invoice is $12 and electronically is $1.20. But managing an invoice is 4 times much more expensive because you have to check that there is a purchase order. That management process was extremely expensive for that mining company. So after using the electronic billing, the cost was reduced and it was the same as issuing an electronic invoice. So I need you. So this company hired or a supplier. I want a system like this, and I want my vendors to get it for free. So there are areas of opportunity, and we can look for proper incentives to provide a system not only from the tax point of view, but from other solution point of view. Yes, I have a question for Mr. Maximo Frias. I would like to know your experience with regards to the use of technology. We are part of the fiscal incorporation regime, and as of May the 1st, we started issuing our electronic invoices to our customers. It is extremely simple. We can do it through SAT website, and we haven't experienced any problems. It's a very simple process, and it meets all the fiscal requirements because it is issued through the SAT portal. Thank you very much. Anyone else? The final question, Mr. Massimo. Once the process of accepting e-billing was completed, have you purchased or have you used your computers or have you used your mobiles for e-billing? What has happened after you went from the mandatory process? Well, I want to tell you that it has not been easy. Through the modules, we are training other people. We're training the small size taxpayer. We are teaching step by step how to create an electronic invoice so that later on that person can file the return. Some people have to be helped by the clerk at the module if the person doesn't want to sit at the computer and do it himself or herself. But the experience is that as every quarter comes, people become more experienced. So it's like a school. Well, we don't want intermediaries so we can comply with our obligations. That's why we have the modules, and the modules are helping us teach step by step in a very simple manner how to file a tax return. Maybe there's a person that doesn't know how to turn on a computer. So we teach the person how to turn on the computer. Thank you very much to Patricia Delgado Medellin. Patty, can you continue? Thank you very much. Thank you, Vinicius. Thank you, Mr. Massimo. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you all. Thank you, all panel members, for your participation.